Hi there, Marriott Martinez here, and I wanted to do a video for all of my QuickBooks Online community members that may have realized that their QuickBooks Online interface has completely changed. If you have spent time to build out your bookmarks and to create workflows for your business, so that way you can come into QuickBooks and get business done and be able to come in and go out as quick as possible and as effectively as possible, you can still create that same experience in the new version, but there is some things you need to do. So let's go ahead and start with the old version, and I'll also add a video when I actually covered in detail why we choose to create our bookmarks and our menu in this way. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remind you of what the clean interface looks like before we go ahead and move over to the new user interface. So in the current QuickBooks Online user interface, which will be available until the fall of 2025, or when Intuit wants to push the new interface to every user, you had a left-hand navigation toolbar. On that toolbar, you started with the menu, and you usually would have started with tons of different areas. You can choose which areas you'd like to see, and you could hide the areas that were not applicable to you, and you can even create bookmarks to essentially create a workflow for your business. What does that mean? Well, when you first come into QuickBooks, if you want to focus on bank transactions, you would bookmark that area, and that would be the first area you can start with. Then, for example, you can reconcile your books. Then you can look at your financial statements. And then you would move forward with other areas that are important to you. For example, you can go into your sales area and possibly look at all your sales. You can do your expense area review by looking at expenses and then look at all expense transactions. And again, it's a super clean experience with each area here called a center. And then you would just click through each center to review your next steps. And that's how it was in the good old days. So now let's go ahead and look at what it's like in the new experience. I'm going to click on the settings icon and say try a new version of QuickBooks. Something really important to understand here is if you're accountant, if you're using a QuickBooks Online accountant, bookkeeper, tax professional, or another collaborative professional that is helping you with your QuickBooks, if they have already switched you over to the new version, you would already be looking at this experience. If they haven't switched you over to the new experience, then you will be switched over soon, either by Intuit or by your accounting professional. But this is what it's going to look like when you're switched over. I want to be completely honest that through fall 2025, you may be able to switch back to the old experience, but I do highly suggest that you now get used to the new experience, as this will be the ongoing experience as of the end of 2025 and in the future. So let's take a step back and breathe. Whew. I don't know about you, but the first time I saw this, I was completely overwhelmed. This is way too much to look at one time. And if I'm trying to get things done, this is incredibly distracting and overwhelming for me. So it took me a few days and decide on what I wanted this to look like because number one, I serve my community members and do suggest QuickBooks Online as their accounting software or one of their accounting solutions. And secondly, I myself support my own businesses using QuickBooks Online. So I needed to get comfortable with this interface just like you will. So let me share what my strategy has been so far. The first thing I like to understand is what am I looking at? So now Intuit QuickBooks is calling these top icons apps. So we are looking at the different apps that are available to you. Before, these were essentially our centers. So we'd come over to our left-hand navigation, we'd click, for example, into the accounting center, and then we'd see the different transactions that we can do, like banking, receipts, reconcile, access to chart of accounts, so on and so forth. Instead of them being only on the left-hand navigation toolbar, they are now right here in front of you on the top from left to right. Honestly, I feel like that is overwhelming and unnecessary since I already can choose to access these areas over here on the apps. So that's why the first order of business for me is to update my bookmarks area. So it's the very first thing I see. And again, it's in the order that I want to see it. That way, if the first thing I want to do is come into bank transactions and not have to see anything else, then I can just click on bookmarks, bank transactions, and I know this is the first step in my workflow. Even if the first time I open this, I come in here and this is the first thing I see, I'm not going to worry about that anymore because I know I can come over to bookmarks, bank transactions, and this is essentially what I want to see first. Of course, there's always going to be opportunities when Intuit QuickBooks is going to upsell you on different items. Just go ahead and exit out of that, and then you'll have a clean view again. I want to reassure you that you still have your top gear settings here with the same columns that we've seen in the past. You also have access to what we used to see as the plus new button. Now it's the plus create button, but it's essentially the same concept. So you click on the plus or hover over it, and you have your customer column, your vendor column, your team, and your other. Again, there is nothing you can do about seeing these items. They're going to be in your view, but you don't have to feel pressured to click through and look at them every time, as long as you have built out the bookmarks in the workflow process that best fits your business. Now you have these pin icons. These are considered apps, and essentially they are our centers that we have gotten comfortable with in the past. To see them, you're going to want to make sure this view is open. And this is essentially your accounting center. This is your expense center, your sales center, and then a few additional centers that you may or may not be using. So we're not going to go into each one because really the key items to be aware of is that these new apps are essentially your previous centers. So for example, I'm going to click on my bookmarks, and this is the original bookmark process that I created. But now it may be more difficult for me to find the accounting and then let's say the chart of accounts area, or maybe my reconcile, or some other common area that I want to see very often. So what I can do is I could save them as bookmarks. Once I've done that, I'm going to close this for a moment, and I'm going to click on bookmarks. Then I want to click on the pencil icon. And let's say I want to essentially create my bookmarks like a workflow. So for example, the first thing I like to do is look at my bank transactions. After that, I go ahead and work on my reconciliations. Possibly after that, I go ahead and look at my reports. Then I may open my specific reports, or I may not. So let me go ahead and just uncheck these because these are already going to be available in my custom reports. And then I want to look at my chart of accounts in case I need to make any adjustments. I'm going to save. And now my workflow is even simpler. But what if you go to your sales center quite a bit? You go to see your sales, possibly your customer center, or even your product and services list. And you want to know where to find it. So I'm going to click over here on the sales app. And as you can see here, this is what the sales app looks like. But it may not necessarily be the area that you want to see every time. Maybe under sales, you want to have access to sales transactions and your product and services. If that's the case, I'm going to close this for a moment and go back to bookmarks. Now easily I can click on my bookmarks and just say, take me straight to my sales transactions. So again, the concept here is that even if you feel like there's a lot more to see, you can always create a similar experience by using bookmarks. Lastly, if you feel like there is too much to see even here on this new left-hand navigation, you can click on customize and say, I don't necessarily need to see these apps. So you can unpin them. And when you do that, then basically you get a cleaner left-hand navigation. You cannot remove dashboards, feed, or reports. but you can click on My Apps and then again, choose where you want to move forward. Again, if you feel like you are clicking through several times to get to expenses vendors, then go ahead and just decide at this point, I think I want to make this a bookmark. So then you could either bookmark the current page like that, or you could have, for example, gone into expenses and you want to have access to your transactions all the time. You click on the bookmark and now you have vendors and expense transactions under your bookmarks. So far, this has been my optimal way to keep my experience nice and clean and to be able to direct my workflow that best serves my business. As I start feeling comfortable with this process and this new user face, sure, I'll go ahead and take a look at what they want us to see under dashboards, feeds, and essentially this is the report center that I already have access to under my bookmarks. For now, I just want to keep a very clean interface. One last update that I do think is pretty cool. To create an even cleaner experience, you can click on this new icon, which is to enter full screen. And then you really clear up the screen and you can focus just on one transaction at a time. When you're done, you can open it up again and it'll open up the left-hand bar and of course the top bar, which has your gear settings, which is very important for your business. And that, my friends, is how I am navigating the new user interface as of fall 2025. I have one last tip, and this is for my accounting community that are logging into their clients' accounts as Intuit QuickBooks Online accountants. So when you're in the Intuit QuickBooks product as an accountant, you're going to see the Intuit QuickBooks icon here, and you're also going to have your client switcher, and that's how you know you're using the QuickBooks Online accountant login. You also have this area called My Menu. This is only for QuickBooks Online accountant users. In my Menu, you can use that same logic of bookmarks, but you actually can create sections here under your My Menu area. So for example, I like to have my accountant tools on the top, and then I like to have my bookmarks that are very specific to client work on the bottom. When you click on My Menu and open it up, you can go ahead and even customize how My Menu looks. You can see your different sections which are available, which are the bookmarks, the plus create, and the tools. You can move the sections in order, and you can even choose what you want to see in each one of those sections. So again, it's up to you how you want to use My Menu, but I use My Menu specifically to be able to access those tools that are not necessarily going to be accessed quickly under the bookmarks bar. So just wanted to drop that note as well, just to let you know that that also is going to be different here in this new user interface. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment here on this video, and I'll also add a few more references to a couple of awesome friends of mine that have made videos on the user interface as well. Okay guys, have fun, and see you in the next video.